Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Absolutely incredible experts the world over with fabulous backgrounds, deep insight, and they're often here to help us all find our unique life path to grow, help us with our soul expansion or just general life expansion, paying the bills and everything else. We've had healers, New York Times bestsellers, one White House physician to the US president, another doctor who's received the Order of Australia and the Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award for doing global disaster recovery work, tsunamis, earthquakes, hurricanes, you name it. A whole wide smorgasbord of experts, including, again, a Super Soul 100 teacher, a Super Soul Sunday guest, and it goes on and on and on. In that sort of caliber of expert, we've got somebody very special today from Arizona, Marilynn Hughes, 105 plus books. I may not have the number exactly right, but that's okay. Currently working on a screenplay or a series of screenplays. She'll explain that later. She's all about a lot of different stuff. Out-of-body travel. I'll call it history, sacred history. And she covers a lot of that in her books. She's experienced a lot. She shares a lot with all of us. She's an acclaimed name, is just how I'm going to put it, on the international scene when it comes to spirituality, the sacred, and mankind's history. I don't really know how else to describe her, but it's big. So Marilynn and I were, I was super fortunate to meet her. I'm going to guess 6 to 7 years ago. We just got a chance to reunite, and it's been fantastic. We were laughing just coming on. Marilynn, welcome to the show, Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. It's
And
great
great.
to see you again.
Yeah, I was just going to say, great to see you again. And can you give us an overview of your, last 30 years? You've been helping a lot of folks. You've been exploring, though. I'm going to label you as a spiritual explorer.
Well, there you go. That works. So yeah, I mean, it's been going on for probably actually a good 38 years. I've been experiencing out-of-body travel, and that kind of brought about my journey of, exploration, I guess you'd say. So, I had my first experience at the age of 9, and then it came back to me again at the age of 22, and then you know uh, about, I don't know, I'm 59 now, so however many years that is, my specialty isn't math, but about 38 years, I think. And so about 38 years later, I've been journaling those experiences. I started doing that right away, and ended up writing about 109 books. And then, in the experiences that I had, I would hear and see music. And so I ended up writing the music that I would hear in these out-of-body experiences. So then I have a lot of music. I painted things that I saw. So I have all these paintings. But the book started with that, with the journaling of the experiences themselves. And I mapped out this pathway, which I call the pathway of purification, the karmic purification of the soul. I started learning about part of the reason why we incarnate on the planet Earth, the purpose, the spiritual purpose, why we're here. But then in that process, some of the things that I was instructed in these out-of-body experiences to do was to start collecting the ancient sacred texts. And so I started collecting ancient sacred texts from all around the world, all world religions, all cultures, and I would be very specifically led to these things, which ones, when to study them. And it was a really interesting path. And as the path proceeded, it was almost like these ancient sacred texts. I even had a vision about this, an out-of-body experience years later, where I saw these ancient sacred texts in the heavens, and they were a staircase. Each of those ancient sacred texts were a step on this beautiful staircase that wound all the way up from earth to heaven. It became the title to one of our documentary films, which is The Staircase from Earth to Heaven. So anyway, we did take on, we started, I started with in the documentary film area with Charles Bacchus and a group of producers and directors that were from A&E and the History Channel with The Road to Armageddon that was released in 2012. And then starting in the year 2020, I started a series of documentary films with producer and director Brian Malum. And we've put out a series of about 8 or 9 films on the grand phases of the soul, which is laying out this path that I've been shown of the sequence of events that occurs in the actual progression of the soul as it matures and develops in the spiritual path on earth. And then others, an obvious one, how to have an out-of-body experience. And then the follow-up to that, the Tao of mysticism, going into the deeper mysticism, but also things like the initiations into the mysteries, a film on the rites of passage. So going into, the mysteries, the ancient mysteries, but lots more, lots of these things, angelology, demonology, spiritual warfare. We have quite a few projects also that are in the can that are, I think we have 4 or 5 projects that the documentary film producer is working on that will come to pass when he gets them finished, but they are already, filmed. And so we have that going on. You know, about 3 years ago, we were contacted by several people in the film industry who were interested in taking my first book, which seminal classic, as my old publisher used to call it, and turning it into a television series and feature film series. And that's The Mysteries of the Redemption, a treatise on out-of-body travel and mysticism. And this is a compilation of the first 5 books. And so that has, been kind of stunted because we're looking for financing, of course. But I'm working on those screenplays for those now, and I'm working on season 4. But so that's what we're kind of working on, trying to bring it to life, all the things that I've seen, because a lot of people think of out-of-body travel from a very limited scope. And the experiences that I've had, and I think the purpose of what I've been shown has been to make it a lot bigger, to show people it's not just, oh, you get out of your body, you look at your body, you fly around the astral plane, you see whether or not you can see what someone's doing. It's actually an experience where you learn to travel hundreds of spheres of existence. You travel into your past and future lives and sometimes parallel existences. You do these things for the purpose of understanding things about the nature and the construction of your soul. You go into the Akashic records, you learn about why you're here, what you need to actually accomplish while you're alive in this lifetime. You learn about your fetters, as the Buddhists might call it, the things that hold you back. In Christianity, people call it sins. In Buddhism, it's fetters and cravings, the things that hold you to the ground. And so what my work tends to do is it opens people up to have these experiences and to start and accelerate the path of purification, the spiritual acceleration, so that we don't keep just kind of like, I don't know, unconsciously going through life. And then we realize at the end of life, we cross over and we're like, oh, did I forget to do the purpose of my incarnation again? And I have to go do that. And we just kind of cycle in a circular pattern. We cycle, cycle, cycle. We give ourselves the opportunity to wake up and actually fulfill it, so that when we end our life here, we might be in a position to, what many of the great masters talked about, go to the next level. And one of the great things about the ancient sacred texts that people don't realize is that they are the gold that leads us there, because these are the final words of those souls who figured it out before they left their final incarnation on earth. And so those ancient sacred texts are literally gold. And those words are literally the words of release, the words of liberation, the secrets that we need to understand that will give us the pathway to doing what they have done.
A roadmap to soul acceleration. Can you take us back? Let's go back to when you were 9. Give us some flavor. What the heck happened? What was the out experience? And if the one when you're 22 is better, it's up to you to share because you've been asked this all the time. I want it to be fun for you to share.
Well, I'll give you the overview of the 9-year-old thing. The 9-year-old thing happened. I was, 9. So you can imagine, you know, I'm lying in bed. And it's like all of a sudden, this huge, massive vibrational power came over me. And so imagine this in a 9-year-old mind. The these massive clouds undulating all around me, white, gray, literally the heavens are opening in front of me. So I'm lying in bed and that's happening. So the clouds are doing that and they part and this beautiful staircase opens to heaven. And on each side of the staircase are hundreds of angels. And at the top of the staircase are two thrones. And one is, there's standing in front of the 2 thrones are who I perceive to be God the Father and God the Son. And so I'm asked to come forth and beckon forward. And I go through a series of experiences there. And I'll probably just kind of summarize it because you can read about it. But basically, what happens is I'm shown that there is a purpose that I have to fulfill in my life, and that this will come back to me later, and that it will be filled with a lot of, I don't know, trials and tribulations, I guess, persecution as well, which, to be honest with you, there has been, if you think about the last 40 years, think about the early 80s, the 90s, this is something that is a lot more accepted now than it was when I first started this, is what I guess I would say. So you had to have a pretty strong constitution to come forward and say, yeah, this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. And, accept me, you know what I mean? So it was a very difficult thing, within families, within society, within everything, it was not the norm and it was not accepted. And so there was a lot of trials and tribulation. I was warned that there would be. I saw a huge cross and it was on fire. And I was told that this cross represented the ignorance of the cross being on fire, represented the ignorance of man, and that I would have to put that fire out. And I was like, well, how am I going to put it out? It's like, who am I? And it was kind of, it went so, it's kind of one of those things for anyone who's had any type of out-of-body experience or mystical experience, and maybe you can relate to this with the experiences that you have. A lot of these things, vibrational, energetic, you're filled with knowledge and you can't put it into words. And it's like, I'm filled with, basically, this is how it's going to be. And you're like, okay, I get it, but I don't. You know what I mean? Okay. And I'm 9 years old. So I'm just kind of like in complete and utter awe. And so there's more to it. But at some point, I'm sent back down the stairs. I'm completely blown away. It's such a beautiful thing. The angels are singing, the clouds are billowing, the marble staircase is unbelievable. I'm seeing what to me is the representation of God the Father and God the Son, and I am in the presence of God the Father and God the Son. Although I was raised in the Mormon church, it was primarily my father who believed in that, and the rest of my family was pretty much atheist. And so I wake up and I run to my mother to tell her, my God, Mom, I just saw God. And she's like, she was from another country, and she's like, don't talk nonsense. don't ever say that nonsense again, and don't you lie like that. And that was basically the gist of what would be the next 30, 40 years of my relationship with, anyone who was an atheist, anyone who, um, a, a lot of people who had a lot of faith beliefs, because mysticism was not accepted in many of those faith beliefs, Christianity included, so um, you had to quiet yourself and do your work quietly in the background. Does that make sense?
Totally.
And then when I was 22, so it kind of pulled itself back. I quietly held that moment. And then when I was 22, it recurred shortly after the birth of my oldest daughter. I have this spontaneous out of body experience. And again, I'm blown away. It wasn't anything nearly as spectacular as the one when I was 9, but it was life altering. And it began, what would become a very sequential set of experiences where, I learned, it starts out where you're learning basic things, like how do you get out of your body? Okay, then how do you actually move around in a spiritual body versus a physical body? How do you see, hear, feel, move? How do you get through physical objects? All those things. And then you're like in the astral plane. And then all of a sudden you learn, oh, look, there are these tunnels. There are these different tunnels. There's a black tunnel with a light at the end. There are circular spiraling tunnels. There are tunnels with these deep black bands. What are these tunnels? And you learn through the assistance of these angels that are there to guide you, and also different spiritual teachers that come. So I had a spiritual teacher named Emmanuel. I had a spiritual teacher named Kutahe. I had people from my past lifetimes, one named Red Jacket, who became very important in my journey. And, but I had a series of these teachers and guides that would teach me. And then I would learn to travel through these tunnels. These tunnels then took me to these different dimensions of existence. So then you're immediately learning, oh, it's not 1, 2, or 3 dimensional, or even 4th or 5th dimensional. We're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of dimensions and many different spheres of existence. And then we're dealing with different universes, and we're dealing with, these are the creative spheres. These are the spheres of time where our different lifetimes are held, future, past, present, parallel. And then you're learning, what is it? How does this parallel stuff work? You know what I mean? And then but then you're also dealing with the mystery realms, where the initiations into the mysteries and the rites of passage occur. And that, I'd have to say, that's where timelessness reigns. That's where there is no time at all. And, everyone talks about that. They say timelessness, but timelessness is an entity in and of itself. It's a mystical entity, and it is something that has its own experiential definition. It's not just a word, it's a mystical state. So it's like when you enter timelessness. So like when you're reading my books and I say, and then I entered into timelessness, it's not like, oh, she just left time. It means I entered into a mysterious, mystical elevation. It's like you're not in the same universe anymore. And so people don't understand that when they hear that word. And so I wanted to clarify that. So there's that whole worlds of timelessness, And then beyond that, there's so much more, because you have to remember, I've written over 109 books on this. So that's why, because what I found, and ironically, what I was shown early on, was part of my job was almost like, to be a map maker was to show people where things were and that what there was out there, and that there was so much to be discovered. And by so doing, it made it possible for people, even just by reading about it, that it opened up their interior pathways to having the spontaneous eruption of these experiences within themselves. And that's what we've kind of seen has happened for a lot of people, along with, learning some of the other things that help out in, generating the experiences. But even just becoming aware that this exists and these things can happen seems to generate it, seems to open it up for people. It's kind of like what you do too, where, you're bringing an energy and a possibility, a new construct. Even like when Christ came, he brought in something that didn't exist. So just as when Jesus came in, he actually brought a reality that was not yet present on earth. And it was like he created a pattern, brought a pattern from heaven to earth that is now our norm. It is something that is here now that was not present before he incarnated. And so that is what we are all trying to do. That's what people who are called to any kind of spiritual work, a light work. So that's what you're doing when you're bringing that in. One of the things I was told early on was to continue to go into these out-of-body travel states and bring as much of heaven to earth as I could do. And then I tell people that too, just go bring heaven to earth, because it's an energetic thing. It's not just words, it's power. Remember, knowledge is not words, but power. And you go bring that energy, and you bring it down from the heavenlies. And that is how we change the patterns of what is possible here on earth.
Hey, let's go biggest picture up. Is love the fabric of the universe?
Yes, it is. And the funny thing too is, and it's not funny, but it is kind of, I mean, is, love is God and God is love. And, I don't know, a lot of people miss that, what that really means, because God is also all powerful and all these other things. But if you don't understand what that means, that God and love are one and the same, then it's very hard for you to understand what it is we're reaching for here in our earthly journey and what we're trying to achieve spiritually. Because it is our purpose and our goal in our path of purification to become more like God. Because why are we separated from God? Because we are not like him. So in order to come closer to God, we have to become more and more like him. So we remove the fetters. We identify those things that hold us back from God. And what is that? Those are the things that are not of love, because God is love. And see, people mix this up. They think, oh no, God is this punishing, they think of this in this way. They don't understand that justice and compassion are all part of that love. It's a complicated thing, and that's why it's a complicated thing, that they don't understand that compatibility is a crucial law of the universe. And so we do go where we're compatible. There was the 16th century or mystic Emanuel Swedenborg spoke about his visions, and the most popular of his works was Heaven and Hell. And I love all his works, so I have a whole shelf on him. But he spoke about compatibility, and a lot of my experiences have been very much in line with what he experienced as well, which is we are going where we're compatible. And so we have the heavens, we have the hells, we have the purgatories. And the purgatories are places of purification. Even the hells are places of purification. One of the things that I was called into was to assist souls in the purgatories and the hells when they make a turn, no matter how slight, towards the light, to assist them in that alteration, that change. And what I've learned is that the moment any soul makes any call out to God in any way, even if it's a slight just turn in the mind, God reacts, responds immediately. And so what we don't understand is that it is our compatibility that determines what we are being going to, what we are going towards. And so if God is actually love, then the problem is that we don't understand what love actually is. If we are not moving closer and closer to love, then what is it that we don't understand about love? And then we have to actually come forward and do some of the work, which is sometimes unpleasant. Some people don't want to do that. And ironically, that's part of some of the other side of this, the ancient sacred text, but it's also the study of mystical theology, which is the study of the purification of the soul, which has been done in religions all around the world forever, but is very, very well covered in some very interesting texts like The Spiritual Life by Father Adolf Tanqueray in Catholicism, 3 Ages of the Interior Life by Reverend Garrigou Lagrange, but it's even, Imam Ghazali in the Islamic text, the Iya Ulum Uddin. It's a similar work on mystical theology done by the Sufi mystic. You'll see this in Judaism, you'll see it in Hinduism, Buddhism. It is a genuine thing that is done in all monastic traditions, and there's a reason why. It's because we have to take a look at those things that are hindering us from this path forward. And most of us do come into this lifetime with, several things that might be either karmic issues, just things that we hold on to, whether they are false views, whether they are issues that we have in relationship to other souls. And that's part of the reason for remembering some of our past lifetimes, so that we can identify those patterns. And then we go through this process where if you're remembering all this and you're saying, well, that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work, and that didn't work. So you look at all these different ways and you're like, okay, so none of those were the right answer. So I need to actually, take a look at what are the other options and what is it that I'm missing? What is it that I'm missing here? What do I not understand about love? And that's where I'm going to find God. And when I find God, I find liberation.
I've got a passage for you written by angels, but if anybody thinks I wrote this, thank you. I just saw balls of light as I was typing, and there's absolutely no way anybody who knows me that I could have actually written this, but it's the appendix in a little book called Listening to Angels from 2014, 40 pages, 15-minute read, easy. What's up with mankind? Why angels now? Why they're so available? Awareness for mankind is on the horizon. Call it a spiritual awakening if you wish. It's a chance for all to grow. Mankind is ready for more unconditional love and compassion for all. And more compassion by all for all is needed. Mankind is ready for change from rat race mode. Happiness is obtained in the absence of ego. Ego's afraid to be vulnerable, to let go, and to be in the unknown. Again, there's nothing to lose and nothing to gain. Move past seeing the negative. Compassion can be taught through one's actions. How? Slowing down would do a world of wonder for most people. Doing it consistently is where the problems and opportunities lie, so stay present. Start right now. Letting go means less thinking. Do not get lost in perceived tasks, roles, ego, etc. Being in the moment is to do compassion for all. For individuals, an egoless path would be great, but it's just not realistic. Allow ego to serve as a reminder when it pops up, a reminder for what? You decide. How about a reminder to breathe? How about a reminder to enjoy each moment as it comes? Believe that all moments can be the same. Whether it's a moment at work or a moment looking at nature, all moments are the same and peaceful. Only thinking something can interfere with this. Likewise, there are not separate paths for mankind or separate worlds for individuals. One is one. Through awareness and owning the consequences of one's thoughts and actions, a person begins to see how all of life is truly interconnected in one. Faith in all can lead to a change in mankind. This is the path for all of man. This is about man bringing peace and joy to all. This is about your personal growth in your life and finding the next stage in your soul's development, as well as the continued evolution of mankind. The greatest gift is allowing all is growth and change. This is frightening for some. There's nothing to do here. Slow down the doing. Instead, breathe, smile, and relax. Appreciate all. Last little bit. Compassion for all is life. This is also about acceptance for all. Regard others as yourself, generously and without fixation. Believe in all. It's much simpler than people think. Again, this is because this is not about thinking, but less thinking. Open yourself up to life. Speak with us from an angel's perspective. Speak with them. Be. What do you think of that?
Well, that was a lot. So, I mean, there's a lot there's different parts. So for the most part, a lot of it, I really agree with. There's a few comments in there that I would have some thoughts on, but there was so much there that it was impossible for me to, I'd have to take notes and things.
Whatever reaction you've got, share something with us.
Yeah, the main thing I would say is that the general idea, and then I think that this is what is probably different in my message than some of the maybe the mainstream, I don't know, for lack of a better word, new age idea would be that I don't know, it's so hard because you gave me quite a lot there, and I don't remember every single line, but that basically that will apply to many situations, but there will be many situations where it will not. And that would be when someone is going through a major tragedy, when people are going through different circumstances where it would not apply. And so I would probably take a few of those sentences out of there and probably just explain them further myself in terms of what I was shown and how you delineate those further. So that would be
so spiritual crises and other stuff.
Well, not just spiritual crises, but people go through, earthly tragedies, physical tragedies. People do go through things where evil is done unto them, and there are I'll just I don't really feel like going here, but I'll just say it since you brought it up. As so for instance, that will apply to many and most situations. But for instance, let's take someone living in Ukraine and a bomb falls on their house, and there is an energy that comes with that. There is an evil energy that comes with that, and that will not apply. There are people in the country, our country and every country, people who will be murdered for no fault of their own, or killed by a serial killer, or the victim of a serious crime. And there is a principality and a power of evil behind it. And they will be visited with something other than the angelic. It will be the demonic. And they will be struggling with something that has been visited upon them that has nothing to do with any fault of their own. And that will not apply at that moment in their lives. And if someone says that to them at that moment in their lives, they will be offended, and they will be rightly so, because it's not true for them at that time. So it's just those. That's where it gets tough when you give like a 2-page thing instead of like a couple of lines to comment on.
Nuances.
Nuances, yes, nuances. But yeah, so you know, and this is one of the things that is different in my writing, and a lot of the people will come to me because they say, well, a lot of the new age writings, they say, you know, everything is always positivity and light, and then this happened to me. And it's like, yes, let me talk to you about what I have been shown about these things. And my writings cover this extensively because this is a part of our reality. You know, in scripture, it talks about the, you know, the battles between principalities and powers. And my books do cover, I have a documentary, we have part 1 out, part 2 is going to be finished sometime, any day now, actually, on spiritual warfare, angels and demons. And it's about this whole spiritual warfare, which is the different part that happens with the other side of that. And unfortunately, we live in a fallen world. And so people experience both, and you know what I mean? And so people strive to stay in exactly what you've written about there. And it's a wonderful thing to do. And it's, I like it and I love it, you know? And the only comment I'd add to that is remember not to hit people who have been hit with that at inappropriate times, or, you know, people who may have gotten like a terminal diagnosis and they need something else at that moment, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? There's so many different scenarios where that's where we have to remember that as mortal beings, we have to generate compassion. We have to understand that there are powers that work in this world. This is a mortal world, which means the powers of good and evil operate here. And this is 3rd dimensional and 4th dimensional realms are the realms where the battles of the good and evil reside. In the 1st and 2nd dimensions, these are the lower realms where it is primarily dark and then evil. In realms 5 and above, those are the realms of light and life and light. And you have continually upgrading gradations of light as you go to the higher and higher spheres of light, which is really neat because once you hit that 5th realm, you're dealing with only light, and it gets better and better, and these higher and higher and higher vibrations of it in those realms. But in mortal realms, it is the nature that you have these battles of good and evil. And so people will deal with that here. That's part of our, you know, and ironically, we deal with that even just inside of ourselves as part of our spiritual path, unfortunately, you know. So, and part of the way that we deal with it is exactly what you wrote about. Is we make a choice to lift ourselves up into this other part, this principality and power of the angelic, you know. And so, so in that regard, it's exactly spot on. It's just that little disclaimer of remember when it's insensitive, you know what I mean? When it's important, you know, to just remember when it's not appropriate, you know what I mean?
I think I've only had, I want to say the opportunity to, but I've only had seen negativity in physical form, like not light, obviously, but the opposite, darkness moving like 5 to 7 times, and once in a physical way is a long story back in Manhattan. And so it's, to me, it's very much in 13 years, I know maybe 3 things. Angels exist, allow for that to be the case, get your help.
Right.
Where you put your focus is where you put your focus, and how you spend your energy is how you spend your energy. And I would end it there. But I wanted to ask, there are those experiences, but then people get worried about alien life, galactic, cosmos. Can you bring that in with your travels, your experiences, your firsthand experiences? I can remember the first time in a backyard 2 houses ago. This is like 10 years ago in Austin. I'm with someone in my backyard and we're very comfortable, beautiful night, and 2 red balls of light went by. Now, my fear side of me was like, what am I looking at? It was totally friendly, unconditional love, but I just heard from an angel, don't worry about it. And like, leave it alone too. You're not going to pester us for what that was about. So it took 10 years for me to get the answer of what that was. It was safe. But my first reaction was like, whoa, And now it's in the news all the time. The whole UAP disclosure thing, UFO, people are having direct encounters. It's a big galactic universe with a lot of loving beings and the other side too. How do you describe all that, and how do you bring it into this fold of the topic we're talking about?
Okay, well, I think that's a great question. And just to add, I think to just to respond to what you said there, and I think that is to what you said, there's a difference in terms of what we're called to. And because I have been called to go into those, those realms. And also, my ex-husband was a prosecutor for 40 years, and he also was a war crimes prosecutor and in Kosovo. And so, we dealt with, the genocide and also with the prosecution, and dealt with a lot of people who were put in really serious circumstances. And then, ironically, we worked together a lot in the sense of that I would receive information from people who had been murdered, who would tell me things that were helpful. So I think it is important for people like you and I. It's really good for us to talk to each other, because some of us are called to work in both the light and the dark, and some of us are called to work only in the light. And it's been interesting too, because you see things like even with John Edward, James von Prague, and some of them, they've talked about this issue, because James von Prague worked on that show, The Ghost Whisperer, where he had shared the experiences of this anonymous mystic who did work with some of the darker elements, but yet, and James von Prague also had done so, but yet John Edwards spoke about how he was always called only in the lighter side of things. And so it's part of just kind of having the dialogue and the understanding that, we all have these different gifts, and it's totally complementary to one another. And it's really good for us to, work together that way and to understand one another, because we do help each other, because God made us this way. You know what I mean? But going to your galactic question, which is really great, because I love this. I started having experiences with the extraterrestrials pretty early on. And it started, primarily with the Pleiadians. And the Pleiadians were really quite intense. But then I also had experiences with the Arcturians, with a little tiny bit with the Greys, and what was it? The Alpha Centauri. And there was this one culture, there were two cultures that I'm going to try to describe that I've talked about on other shows, so I'll just kind of touch on it. But these two are the ones that stick with me the most. The Pleiadians I wrote quite a bit about, because the Pleiadians came to me quite a bit. But there were these two cultures that I thought were just amazing. And they never told me like where they came from. So I don't have a name for them, but they're separate. And one of them, I just called them the Tibetans, because they told me that they had they could only reach a very small amount of people on the planet Earth, because we're so closed off, I guess. And what they shared with me, and I only had one experience with them, because it was really hard to like even just lock in to their vibration for just even a short amount of time. They were so high vibrational. They were so amazing. And they shared with me that they had contact with I think it was 5 or 7 individuals on Earth, and I believe 5 of them were in Tibet. And they talked about how the Tibetan people had something about them. They never explained what, but that made them more open, more receptive to them. And they allowed me to see how they were working with these individuals in the out-of-body state unconsciously, and working on their vibrational frequency. And they were on such a high vibration. And it was just amazing. And I never got to see them again. And then they told me the other two people on Earth that they had worked with who were from other parts. And I was just, I don't even know, awe is not a good enough word, but I'll just use it since I don't know another. But the second one I'll tell you was probably equally, if not a lot more, was this race. And he was a pure light being. And he shared with me and showed me where he came from. And it was a world that was like so far beyond ours in evolution that, and it was like way, 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 really far, far, far away from us. And he let me see it, because in the mystical experiences in out-of-body travel, you can travel at the speed of thought, so it's, so I was able to go out there, even though it's like really, really far from our system. And what he said he was going to do was, he said, I'm going to hold on to your shoulders and you hold on to mine. And I'm going to allow you to experience what it's like in my world for just a little bit. And just so you see, and then come back. And it was so awesome because he held onto my shoulders, I held onto his, and I'm taken into this world. And I just remember blinded by light, you know what I mean? And it was this world where everything really is, unconditional love. Everything really is complete and utter harmony. It is totally beyond fifth dimensional, probably, 20th dimensional, but probably beyond something that I understand. These beings, whatever they were, because they were pure light, were so far beyond what we are here. It was just such pure ecstasy to be there in their world. I was just so happy and joyful and so amazed. And I know I'm not really doing any justice to it at all. And I was just so, just so amazed and happy to be there. And, and then I'm pulled back and I'm like, I don't want to come back. Can I just stay there? And it's like, no, you can't. But it was like he wanted me, he's explaining to me, he wanted me to know how far and what great a chasm existed between where we are as human beings and where some of these other worlds might be. Now, obviously, just so I'm clear, there are worlds that are equal to us, other worlds that are in the mortal realm that are, battles between good and evil. And there are worlds that are lower than us too. And I've seen them as well, but they're not nearly as much fun to talk about. So, but just to let you know, there are those, but this was just such an amazing thing because it shows us the possibilities, and that, because as human beings, we do have a tendency to kind of think, okay, what's next? And it's like, well, gosh, there's so much more. There really is so much more for us if we actually do begin to, take the spiritual path, because we are just so, a lot of people try to say this is kindergarten in the spiritual training things, but it's almost like that's condescending to me, because in reality, it's like, it's different than that. It's just, they are chasms beyond us in our vibrational understanding and what our knowledge is and where we are. And it is a state of being that they have that we don't have. And when you experience it, it's something that you want to become. You want to become it. And you're not, but you want to become it. And so it's very humbling, because you realize there is a goal. There are things that you need to achieve and want to achieve. But there are, I've cataloged so many things about my extraterrestrial visits. I had so many experiences with the Pleiades, and some people might find these controversial, but I was actually told that Jesus came from the Pleiades. And then I had this experience later where I saw one of the crafts. It was this huge mothership came down, and this, it was ominous. The sound was so overwhelming, and it was coming down, and the undercarriage, and it was like there were thousands of souls, not just me, down here waiting to see. And the undercarriage opens, this big opening comes open, and a light comes down, and this lady comes down, and she's wearing these purple and white robes, and she's got a golden gilded crown, and everyone's calling her the Lady in Light. And there's this immense holiness about her, and everyone's just crowding around her. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. This lady's from the Pleiades, you know? And so I'm just kind of like following around, and, you know, everyone is crowding. And I get up close, and I'm like, oh my God, that's the Blessed Virgin Mary. You know? And I mean, that was a long time ago. That was like 20 years ago. But you know, there's tons of experiences like these. And I had a lot of experiences as well, where the convergence of these crafts coming in, and all these, you know, so things that might be yet to come, a convergence of crafts. People on Earth were lining up and getting on board these crafts. It seemed like some type of evacuation, to be honest with you. You know, I don't want to be alarmist, but I had that years ago, and like in the 90s, and I was like, oh, what's this all about?
Well, mankind's always getting opportunities to open up more, walk a smoother path, be kinder and gentler. And obviously, we're always making decisions that have consequences. Can you talk to us what more awareness looks like to you for mankind? Is it just breathing more, smiling more, relaxing, doing a little less thinking? I'll quote an angel named Charlotte who said, the Olympic gold medal for us all, minus a little asterisk of certain folks going through stuff, is 7% less thinking a day. That's it. Don't try to erase thinking. You're going to be, I'm like, it's like Casablanca, the chief gendarme walking into Casablanca. If anybody remembers the Humphrey Bogart movie, when he walks into the casino and he goes, I'm shocked to see there's gambling going on here. And the waiter walks up with an envelope stuffed with cash and says, sir, your winnings. And he tucks it into his thing and yells, arrest the usual suspects. We are doing thinking. I'm going back to thinking in 1 hour after this interview. I can't help it. But when you're here, we're joyful. Our energy vibration is higher. There's less density. There's that whole, I'll call it a struggle, I suppose, but it's a choice where you get to put yourself. A little bit of Wayne Dyer there. You can't be in a hot shower enjoying it and be upset at the same time. It's either or. So you can't have density and light at the same time. You kind of get to choose the scale. One giant piano key, a million trillion, whatever those are called, keys. Talk to us about how mankind could use a little more gentleness, compassion. Where do you see this? Are we different than the 70s? Was it going to happen in the 60s that we were going to break out and become a gentler worldwide population? Kumbaya. How's this all work in your viewpoint?
Well, you know, I don't think I have all the answers to that, but I do, you know, in terms of just my viewpoint, I guess, you know, just take that with a grain of salt, you know. I think, you know, when you talk about that with the 7% less thinking, it's a very Zen way of thinking. And I think everyone can use more Zen. So yes, but I think it also has a lot to do with what each of us are individually called to do. And so it applies differently to every one of us. You know, if you're a scientist and you're an astronaut, then you're probably going to think less in different ways than someone who is doing more of a Zen job. You know what I mean? And
Well,
so, you know, embrace who you are and what you do, and but find ways to make it more of a Zen experience for yourself, you know. But I definitely think that we can bring a lot more compassion and kindness into our world. I think that it's always been an opportunity. Unfortunately, I think that we forget that we do have to start with ourselves, so really the power lies, that's where the power lies. It's always lied there. And, ironically, that's what the Zen masters talk about, is that you make change by making change in yourself first, and so we do have to start with becoming more compassionate, loving, and kind ourselves. And so ironically, that's what the path of purification is becoming more aware of where we lack that compassion, kindness, and understanding of ourselves and of others, where we are not being that way. But in our society, I'll just make a couple of observations. I think that our society has become very, very unkind and lacking in compassion, and also lacking in a lot of things, to be honest, and without getting really specific, in a lot of degrees, you have dichotomies. You have, it's almost like, if you say it, it's almost like people will misunderstand what you're saying, but it's intolerance. But I'm not talking about intolerance of people's way of life, because I don't really see that is the problem. I think it's intolerance to people having different viewpoints. People have become extremely intolerant and very unkind and lacking in compassion, and not being willing to listen to each other and trying to understand why they might feel the way they feel or have different viewpoints. And this is part of, what, in the old Native American traditions, there was a reason why we had elders. And that was the thing with most of the traditions. We had elders, and part of the wisdom of age is that you listen to other people to understand why they believe and think and feel the way they do, instead of just attacking one another. And we lack a lot of that in our societies these days. It's just a lot of intolerance to different points of view, and an unwillingness to even view the other side as human, or as perhaps that their intentions might be good, even if they don't agree with your views.
I love what you're saying right now. Totally spot on. I've got 3 super quick quotes for you. The third one's going to lead us to one out-of-body experience you don't mind repeating often. It could be the equivalent of meditation for you. It's the well, where you go to like recharge. It's Bora Bora, not boring. The first one's a NASA astronaut, and that will be the third, actually, to lead us to that. Where do you like to go frequently that's really pleasant for you? And so it's Story Musgrave said, NASA astronaut, getting out of the comfortable path. That's what exploration is all about. But I wanted to ask, where's your most comfortable spot? Backing up, I've got Joshu, Zen master Zhao Zhao, if you say it in Chinese, but Joshu in Japanese. There's always this teacher in Buddhism and the student expression back and forth. The student's trying to prove he's arrived here. So a student comes running up to the Zen master and says, "What about it when I seek to be Buddha?" And the Zen master says, "What a tremendous waste of energy." But this student is super smart, and he comes right back, cat-like reflexes, to try to one up the teacher. He goes, "Well, what about it when I don't waste energy?" And the Zen teacher says, "In that case, you are Buddha." And I've got to tie into what you were saying. And Archangel Uriel said, like in 2014, if more people would listen, less conflict would arise in any given situation. So I thought that was
Amen.
right on to what you were saying. And I thought you handled really the whole contemporary, did I say it right? Contemporary, the present day that we're in. I think you handled it really well. What trip are you, this is a fun question, and then I'll blow some sage, and then we'll start to wrap it up with you sharing some more color contrast. And folks, remember, love is what helps you appreciate all the contrast. Love is what allows you to do listening without judging. Judging is just, if you saw it as a vibration, it's a little denser than love. And like, subscribe, share, comment. And what have you enjoyed already about Marilynn Hughes's insights, what her experiences have been, type something in there, even emojis work. Have fun with this. Okay, what's your favorite trip that you like to make or that you've made regularly over all these years?
Well, I'm not a big traveler. I lived in Colorado for many years. So probably the trip that I took the most and I really liked it was going to this little chapel in New Mexico in Chimayo, which was a little pilgrimage spot. And it's a little spot where a little miracle occurred, I think in the 1800s, or maybe it was the 1900s. I can't remember, but there was a priest who was martyred, and he was buried with this cross, and the cross kept miraculously moving to this spot, and they would move it back, and it kept moving. And so they eventually built this chapel at Chimayo, and it's kind of considered like the Little Lords of America. And so they have crutches all over the walls. It's just a tiny little chapel, but it's this really, it's very Spanish. It's an adobe little building. I've gone there quite a few times because it was not a huge trek from any of the places I lived in Colorado. And I actually got quite a few of my little things that I have around the house at Chimayo. I have some of the dirt from Chimayo. They have this place where people get dirt from Chimayo because because it was buried there. That's what they do. And so I'd say probably that would be one of my favorite places. Another place I loved to go to and still, like to go to is Crestone, which was not that far from where Chimayo was, which is up in the San Luis Valley, and it's about an hour north of Alamosa, and it's a spiritual community. And what I loved about Crestone, I lived there for a few weeks in 1993, and it has a Carmelite monastery, a Buddhist monastery, I think 2 Buddhist monasteries, one's Tibetan, has an Egyptian monastery. There's a Hindu temple. They have some Native American stuff there, and they have a pyramid. It's a multicultural little community of spiritual seekers, and it's just a really tiny place right up in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, very isolated. At the time when I lived in Colorado, it's a little bit more built up, but not much. Probably has about 1,000 people, if that many. Might be more like 500. Might be 50, honestly. I don't know. But I loved that monastery up there. The monasteries. Used to take my kids up there when they were growing up to go see the little Tibetan place and the Carmelite place and the Egyptian place and the mountains up there. My kids who are now all grown love to go up there and climb the Sangre de Cristo Peak now. So, the mountains of Colorado, probably that whole thing, that's what my kids love. They all go climbing all over the place up there now. So sorry, it's probably more than you wanted to hear.
No, and have you been to Lourdes and touched the water and stuff or whatever with the
I haven't.
Here, that's a big deal. So
it is, but I have not done that.
okay, we've reached the point in the show where we're going to light a little bit of sage. Hey, there's not as much time and space as you think there is. You only have to ask the universe, loving figures, whoever your favorite are. If you don't mind me saying angels, just be like, hey, angels, get me out of my head into my heart. I've done this as a guest. I've blown sage probably on 65 shows in the last 2.5 years. So show host, producers, audience, and it could be a year later. So if it's 2028 and you're in Germany, New Zealand, Japan, definitely put a comment in. I mean, how could you not? You're going to catch sage in a second. So give yourself permission, ask angels to get you out of your head into your heart, catch sage, own it with a thank you, amen, rock and roll. Set your intent is what I'm trying to say. Some people start tasting it, smelling it. Just as I start to light it, there's no smoke yet. Everyone gets a dad joke. Why did the rabbit fall down that well? He didn't see that well. If you're laughing, you're letting go. If you're breathing, you're letting go. If you're smiling, you're letting go. If you're petting the dog, you're letting go. Thinking about petting the dog is not petting the dog. And there ends the lesson. Okay, catch some sage, but why settle for sage, which is great. It's linear. When you can have a triple decker tiramisu, no calories. So sage, get flowers, and even ocean Whether you live by the ocean or not, ask for something exotic, Bora Bora, not boring, Japan, coastline that you remember, Newport, Rhode Island, Rehoboth, Azores, it doesn't matter. Ask for what you get excited about. Okay, are you getting sage in Arizona right now?
Yes.
Are you getting flowers?
Yes.
And then if you want to hear ocean waves, palm fronds moving, I'll blow through the microphone. Again, we're going to blame angels together and Mary and everybody. Let them bring you Hawaii. Let's go crazy, Wailea, Kanapali, something exotic. Here comes the blowing. My microphone's above the screen. It's going to look like I'm blowing upwards. Catch a little sea spray on your nose. If you want to see the action on the beach, the waves, feel a lot of love coming in. Whoever your favorite figures are, maybe we can get a surprise appearance. And did you get a little Hawaii?
Yeah. Nice Avalokiteshvara.
And say that last part again. I'm always slow, so I heard words that I didn't understand.
I see Avalokiteshvara coming in through the water there.
Yeah, and definitely enjoy it. And then for the audience, if at home you want to close your eyes, have light come in on your eyelids, you've got to find your recipe your way. It's like banana bread. There's a gajillion recipes, but then there's one you're going to settle on that hits home and you're like, everyone gobbles it up and I love it. It smells good. It works out. It's an easy recipe. You have to find your way to let go. So go ahead and do something special. And then Marilynn, we're coming back to you in just a second. Do you want an angel? Do you want a Native American chief, Sai Baba, or one of each?
You choose.
Okay, we'll do Joy, unless you want Charlotte or Min, or Michael.
Sounds great.
Yeah, and then Sai Baba colorized version, and then who did I say? Oh, you can choose Geronimo, Del Knife, or Red Shirt. You'll let me know. But first, Joy. Here comes Joy. She's a pink ball light angel who's kind of cosmic. Love, joy is a constant, although thinking anything pulls us right out of that slipstream. Welcome to regularly like living your life here, having to pay the bills. My problem is, my drama is. It's going to happen. But so pink light on your eyelids if you want, high peppy voice, hear what you want to hear privately, get an answer, get a hug, get a kiss on the cheek. But what does she have for us all as a quick reminder that you can share with us? You're going to know this blindfolded. And are you getting some pink light on your eyes?
Yes.
And what's Joy got for us as a general reminder, easy reminder, or in alignment with how you would have already covered it had we just gotten to it, but we hadn't gotten to it just yet? What's she reminding us about?
Well, I'm seeing and smelling pine trees. Which to me reminds me of Colorado.
We'll call that one getting out into nature. And it's certainly something I hear all the time, either from guests, from angels. Like the more you just get off the couch, do something, the dog's going to love you. You're going to be a hero.
Makes sense. That's a good interpretation of it,
Yeah.
I think.
Okay. I've got Sai Baba colorized, Sri Shirdi Sai Baba to do the proper thing. I once had a show host who's really famous. I can't say who. Obviously, we don't know who it is. Who got upset, though, that I was dropping the Shri and the Shirdi because there's the more recent Sai Baba. But when you look at social media and characters count, boy, does he have a long name from a character standpoint. So with modern pressures, I was just like, hey, everybody knows it's the big Sai Baba from 100 years ago. Here he is. If anybody wants to let him wink, smile, move, shoulder waggle, eyebrow goes up, catch an Indian temple incense at home, make a private request, just run with this. You know, everyone has a big heart, in my opinion, and can do their own feeling, sensing and listening, if I said it correctly. But what are you getting from, we'll call him Saint Bob, Baba, Bobs, Babs?
I'm liking Saint Bob. I think he would like that.
And you can
Yeah.
ask for a wonderful
Anytime.
incense coming in that you haven't quite smelled before.
I am smelling something, and it's a little patchouli like, but different. And I am feeling what I immediately got from him was trust your gut.
Love it. And I'll buy you time because we're still going to do Dull Knife for Red Shirt to wrap it up, but I'm still going to get you older Geronimo.
Yes, vibing with the Geronimo.
Yeah, here's Geronimo. Action, action, action. He's a softie with this photo. He has been around the block. He's everyone's cheerleader. He's here with words meant to help you kind of kick you in the butt and get you moving. You're that artist. You're like, for 10 years, you've said, I know. I need to get my paintings in that gallery. Your cousins tell you every day, your friends, but you're always like next Tuesday, and Tuesday never arrives. He'll get you moving. What are you hearing from Geronimo for us all?
I'm feeling him say, come home.
Is it the Buddhist Zen home, which is the home is the heart? Or is it a different metaphor? I just heard.
I just really, do you see in his eyes that like come home? Do you see that? I mean, or is it just me? I mean, I'm really getting a lot of, wow, I'm getting goosebumps and slammed with energy. Come home.
Aww. And I am getting whooshed here, but I'm very vacuous, so I don't know without slowing more down to here. And if I do that, then I can't be a good show host. Okay, we're going to do Dull Knife Red Shirt, then we wrap it up. And we'll have you share in any direction if there's a certain
I'd like to just say something about that, just for anyone who's watching, because the feeling I get is whoever's watching is, whatever is home to you, come home.
It could be, hey, you've forgotten to do the gardening for 2 seasons. Plant any flowers. People don't realize how simple, like, yes, there's complexity. The whole world's complexity. Pick anybody and we can have more complexity. I'm going to do complexity at like 2 hours from now. But more you can practice simplicity, which is love, the high vibe. Your laughter, I'm quoting Joy here. Your laughter is hope and healing to others. Are we even allowing for some more laughter daily? Probably not. I got bills to pay. Okay, here's Dull Knife, wisdom with some humor, like a mountain range, more formal and proper, yes, no. But people can catch one of those 50 sacred scents: tobacco, sweetgrass, juniper, cedar, pine, desert piñol. Are you catching anything in the air?
Give me a second on Dull Knife. Dull Knife being Cheyenne is significant to me. I'm trying to touch into that with him.
And it may be singing what's it called? The peace pipe. I'm going to lose my English here. Peace pipe sounds, feeling, or visual. You get a shot of like the mountain range, a stream, a visual, or just gentle words and a beautiful hug. Everyone should be getting hugs. One hug's worth 200 questions.
Dull Knife. Really just get this sense with him of just this, what you were talking about earlier, the thinking less, he's just kind of like a Zen feeling of, enjoying the moment, and like what you were saying with the mountain range, the Cheyenne, roamed in Wyoming, and the beautiful plains and the mountains in the distance, and the grasses and the waters, it just, definitely smoke the peace pipe. Be at peace with yourself, be at peace with others, be at peace with those you love, be at peace with those you don't get along with. Be at peace. Be at peace. Be at peace. Dull Knife, I just feel, I don't know anything about this guy in terms of what he was in life, but what I sense from him as his message is be at peace. Don't be at war with yourself or with others.
Marilynn Hughes, that was deep, and I've got goosebumps all over, and I'm throwing accolades your way right now, whatever that means. I do this and confetti with the here, but it's not turned on. I have Red Shirt as our final figure, Lakota Sioux chief, red shirt, gentlest mom in the world, not a manly description, but it doesn't matter. He's so soft-spoken. He's wearing a U.S. presidential medal day after the
Man, I'm
photo
getting
was
so
taken.
slammed. Let me see that man.
Yeah.
Let me see his face.
Day after the photo was taken, he and Geronimo, White House, I think it was Teddy Roosevelt, horseback, Pennsylvania Ave, parade of some sort.
I want to tell you something though. Red shirt, Lakota Sioux, and I immediately felt, I hope you don't mind me just kind of taking a tiny little detour with red shirt here. There was a man that I worked with. His name was Dr. Tomas Stryker. And ironically, we worked on a book that he did, which was Extraplanetary Experiences. He did a research study with myself, with Ingo Swan, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, and
holy cow.
others. Yeah.
Those are big names. All of you are big names.
Yeah, we did this, and he wrote this book, Extraplanetary Experiences. And I last saw him when I lived in Pagosa Springs, Colorado. He came out and visited, and Thomas Stryker was an amazing person in his hometown in Nevada. He had this amazing ministry where he was feeding the homeless, 10,000 people a day.
Oh, God.
And he had this amazing thing that he did where every year, twice a year, he would go up to the Lakota Sioux reservation and he brought food, clothing, all sorts of stuff for the Lakota Sioux. And the minute you brought him up, this red shirt, I felt Thomas Stryker, because on his last trip to the Lakota Sioux reservation on my birthday about 10 years ago, he was killed in a car accident on his way back. And I immediately felt Tomas saying, charity, don't forget to give back. Don't forget to give back. And man, am I getting slammed. You know, this man was something, you know. And one of the things about the tribes, and, you know, even about the Lakota Sioux, the tribes, they took care of each other. Let's take care of each other. Don't forget charity. And charity means love. Remember, love is what God is.
And charity starts at home.
Charity starts at home. Don't forget to love the ones closest to you, and then let that love spread. Don't forget charity. Remember, St. Paul said, the greatest of these is love. And in some translations, it says the greatest of these is charity. And Dr. Tomas Stryker lived that. Very few people knew that about him. Except for the people in his hometown.
How did we spell his last name if people want to look him up?
Streicher, and it was Tomas, Thomas, and it's Extraplanetary Experiences. It's a really good book. You know, he got the experiences of Dr. Edgar Mitchell, who's an Apollo astronaut, Ingo Swan, one of the founders of remote viewing, and myself, and several other people who had extraplanetary experiences mystically, with Ingo Swan, remote viewing with me mystically. Obviously, Dr. Edgar Mitchell had them both in a spacecraft, but he also, had, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, as part of that particular research study, but also part of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell research project for extraterrestrial experiences. And that was because, Dr. Edgar Mitchell had a profound experience in space. He experienced samadhi, and then he devoted the rest of his life to psychic studies and paranormal research, and founded the Institute of Noetic Studies, and did all sorts of really neat things. And so the book is about people who've had extraplanetary experiences, and that was his research study. He did it for his doctoral thesis, and it's with, I think it was with Barron Company. So he was a really neat guy. Really died, I guess, I'd like to say he died before his time, but God knows what he's doing, so I'll just shut up.
He did a lot for mankind, setting, just helping us out and pushing the boundaries out. How about that?
Oh yeah, Dr. Mitchell, yes. But I was also speaking of Dr. Stryker, and but interestingly, how isn't it amazing how all of our lives intersect this way? Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Stryker, Ingo Swann, and all these things, and all these people. We're all part of this fabric of life, and we all end up intersecting along the way, don't we?
We do.
And yeah, and here you see Dr. Stryker intersecting with Red Shirt in some way, in this in this intricate pattern of life, the way that he loved the Lakota Sioux.
I had one offer that I forgot that I do this. I forgot to do it before the show, and I'll make the offer. It's just going to be only my highest intent if I put my hand up, and you put your hand up in Arizona, only your highest, not our bill paying side, our happy side, or love and above.
Okay, so which one is that then?
Pick whichever hand you want, whatever's comfortable, but feel the vibe, and then push rainbow light your way 3 times with this hand. But we're going to blame angels, Pleiadians, Mary, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, the whole crew, all unconditional love and above. The first time low, the second time medium, the third time high. And the more a person breathes, and if you have a project, pretend you're in the middle of a lot of writing, and you need a lot of wind in your sail, a lot of smoothness. You want to get knocked out like you're at a bed and breakfast in Nantucket, the sea salt, 7 o'clock there, you're out. You need good rest, but you need good creativity, and you need good typing skills so that you can crank out 20 pages in a pop. No try, Yoda. Here comes the first one. Think of it as the Hindu Shakti thing up and down the back, the chakras, whatever I'm trying to say. Lots of love and energy, rainbow light. Here comes the first one your way. Catch a little Hawaii in the air. And Marilynn, what'd you get on that one?
Just like a sun supernova-ing.
And that's only the little one. So now breathe at home a little and turn up the volume a little. And if you've got to go mow the lawn, but you don't want to do it, ask for some energy and some enthusiasm to go mow the lawn with headphones on. Have good music. Okay, here comes the second one. I'm going to blow twice. Twice it's Hawaii, something in the air, maybe. Here it comes. Pitch a little more love. And Marilynn, what was that all about, if I can get my English out?
Saw the ocean, and I saw clouds breaking over and lightning.
Okay, we're having fun, and this is the last one. It's go big, go home. You're already at home. We have to go big, but it's whatever you'll allow for at home for folks watching in 2028. Remember, Marilynn Hughes, all her details will be below the video. She's been fantastic on the show today. Holy cow. Here it comes. Big enchilada of love, rainbow light. And how was that one?
That was great. I just felt, like a big smile.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I totally forgot I do that. I got told beginning of this year, like, you're supposed to use your hands. This is what you're supposed to do. I sometimes remember, I sometimes don't. I remembered at the last second. Thank you for being so patient with that. Marilynn Hughes, you're invited back. I'm getting fried right now. Goosebumps everywhere. You're invited, first of all, anytime. I know you're totally tied up in 2024, but I'm going to grab you for 2025 to come back on later in 2025, whenever you want, and it's convenient, and you'll talk about whatever you wish. Just having you on is enough. And thank you for being so eloquent, for sharing so much, for, first of all, being like a NASA astronaut, but the opposite. You're sojourning from the heart and with the universe, and doing the most incredible journeys a person can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was great to see you again.
Oh, great to have you on. Angels, Positivity, and Love.